Good evening, everybody. Slightly different video to my norm. I'm not abroad, I'm not at a football match, I'm in Bristol. But I've had so many requests on my Instagram feed to visit pubs here, because I do spend a bit of time here in Bristol, that I thought it would be rude of me not to make a cheeky little vlog about the pubs and the beer of Bristol, possibly involving some cider as well. Let's go into our first pub and get on with the vlog. Now, the first pub that's been recommended to me is the Star in the district of Fishponds. Never been here before. It was quite a long way out in a cab as well, so I'm hoping the beer's good. I don't know that many pubs here, but I've gone totally on my Instagram feed, and a lot of you recommended this place, so I hope the beer's good, and a lot of you particularly recommended the Guinness. So let's get in because it's freezing out here. Well, so far so good, Muttonistas. There are pints flying out here. A couple of Muttonistas have joined me, and they reckon this is the best pint of Guinness in Bristol. I'll judge that by the taste of the pint, but I'm pleased to see a lot of people are on it. Good old-fashioned taps and decent decor. And the pour looked absolutely spot on. Quite a good size head, and I have a little problem here. I've been bought 2 pints of Guinness. Oh well, I think I know how to solve these problems. We'd better get on with tasting the first one, although they should taste identical. That is a pretty good pint. Okay, it cannot be as good as Ireland, but whilst it's not quite as good as the two places, Mulligan's in the station in Manchester, it is pretty good. I would take a pint like this in most cities. If you want me to grade it, I'm not going to give you a number, I'd say good. I wouldn't say outstanding, I'd say good. Temperature a little cold, but not too bad. Whether it's the best in Bristol, I don't really know, because I only went to one place before and I thought the Guinness was bang average, but there was nobody in there drinking it. At least it was great to see pints flying out. Okay, Muttonistas, coming to the end of the pint, and the Primemutton is going to have to move on to fresh pastures. Just a few words about the pub. Very, very friendly staff. They have quite a big dining area as well. Maybe that's because we're quite a way out of town and people might want to choose to take a meal here as well. Pretty impressed with this pint, but I will be going on to try ales and ciders and various other things. So be warned, this is not just about Guinness. Anyway, the first recommendation has proved to be a bit of a winner, so thank you to people who on Instagram recommended this, because it's a good start. We'll move on now to the Drapers Arms, and I hope that proves to be as successful a breeding ground. Right, Muttonistas, next pub, Drapers Arms on the Gloucester Road. Now, from my limited experience in Bristol, the Gloucester Road, which continues on, I think, to be the Cheltenham Road, is full of hip eateries and I think drinkeries. I've been to the eateries, a lot of them are BYO by the way, so think about that if you're coming out to this area. But what about the beer? I've got high hopes here. The bar describes itself as a micropub or microbrewery, so I'm thinking more about craft ales, IPAs, maybe a cask stout or something like that. Probably not Guinness, but if the beer here is as good as the food I've had along this road, we're in for a treat, lads. And yet again, Muttonistas, some fellow Muttonistas have met me in the pub in Bristol. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves.
I'm Nico, long-time viewer, first-time listener. Wait, no, forgive me, YouTube. It's a pleasure to meet this man. We came here just for him tonight.
Okay.
And I'm very ecstatic.
Very grateful for this moment. We're just from around the corner, so it's an honour.
Okay.
I'm Zan, loyal fan.
And what are you drinking here?
We are drinking Hard Rock IPA. We recommended by the lovely man behind the bar.
Okay, jolly
4
good.
pints for 15 quid.
Okay, 4 pints for 15 quid, that's good. I've actually gone for the extra hoppy called Days Like These from the Eastern Brewery. If you follow my work a lot, you'll probably know that I'm into the hoppiest possible ales. Even though it's cloudy, it's still very dry with a bit of tropical fruit in it, probably a bit like a West Coast Pale Ale. And if you've watched me ever at the Northern Monk in Manchester, you'd know I think it's bang on the money. Now, Muttonistas, I'm standing at the bar with the landlord, Mr. Garvin Hickey, and he informs me that there was a Bristol Rovers match today, and before the game they got through 200 pints. 200 pints without the lager boys being present. And, what's more, they concentrate on local breweries. I believe the furthest brewer away on the board at the moment is 21 miles away. Well, what a pleasure to have met the landlord who took me through all the beers, all the breweries, the philosophy of his pub, and the local produce or the local breweries that he sticks to rigorously. Anyway, I'm going to try the more bitter first, a very pale bitter if you can see. Yeah, it's hoppy and light, something I'd like at the start of a session. But if I were going to a football match, this would be something to kick off the evening with. And then finally, the Hard Rock Cheddar Crisp Pale Ale from Draycott, which is a place I actually know in Somerset. That's slightly effervescent, but a little bit more hoppy. I'd say actually the Hazy Pale was my pick of the bunch, but as somebody who goes to a lot of football matches, I hope we draw Bristol Rovers because I'll be coming here for sure. Anyway, onwards and upwards because we've got another pub to go to. And before I go, by the way, Muttonistas, if the Guinness Police and others are saying, what are you drinking halves for? Well, if you want to sample a lot of real ales, or if you go to a beer festival drinking real ales, halves are the way to go to try as many as you can. And if you're going to argue with me, it's right and I say so. So that's that sorted. Okay, Muttonistas, on to another recommended bar, the Jersey Lily. Now, I have to say, the Drapers Arms was wonderful. Thanks again for the recommendations, which have been spot on. So I hope you're all right again here, because this was one of the top 3 recommended bars that I visit in Bristol. Looks like it's an ale house rather than a place for stout, but we'll go in and find out. And a lot of people seem to be staring at what looks like TV screens, so maybe it's a place where Bristol Rovers fans tend to gather and watch the game. Anyway, we'll go in and find out because it's freezing out here. Okay, now at the Jersey Lily, and I have ordered a pint of the Citra Ale. Those of you who watch regularly will know that is absolutely one of my favourite hops. But is it a good example? But before I get on to drinking it, I'm pleased to report that a crowd of Muttonistas are in attendance here today. And as you know, I always do 2-pint reviews when I can, one for this YouTube video and the other one half and half Instagram and YouTube. Anyway, let's get cracking on with the Citra. Now that is very interesting. It's a cross between a bitter and a pale ale, and the Citra notes are quite light, but I'd actually quite like that if I were in a big session just sticking to one ale, so I think I can recommend this one to you. Now, some notes about the bar. well-appointed place. The furnishings are pretty old school. Lots of sport, which is very good because, as you know, you can't always get sport and good beer in the same place. But here, it seems to be an exception. And forgive me if I'm wrong, folks, but I would guess that this is a Bristol City supporters club because there's a Bristol Rovers game going on and they've got the match on. That is the replay between the teams that could possibly face Bristol City in the next round. Okay, Muttonistas, I said you were only getting 4 pubs, but as usual, I'm going to give you a little bonus before we roll the video over to tomorrow. We're now at the Port of Call pub, up a slightly steep incline off the main road, off the White Ladies Road in Bristol, and a lot of you suggested this pub as well. It's a bit quiet, but given it's set off the road, it doesn't mean it's going to be a bad pint. Again, it's -2 or 3. Brass monkeys. Let's get in there. Okay, as always, Muttonistas, 2 pints here, and I've started off with the Bonville IPA or Pale Ale. Not overjoyed with the head breaking up a bit, but it doesn't always mean it's a bad pint. It's from a local brewery. It was described by the barmaid as one of the most hoppy available on cask. Well, I don't know what to make of that. The basic flavour is quite good. I just don't feel as if it's coming out of the pumps correctly. It might be at the end of the barrel. I might have got the last servable pint. I don't know. I would say I'd give this one another try and reserve judgment on it. And whatever my reservations are about the beer, the nuts, the wasabi nuts are excellent. I am going to try a different beer here before we leave, mainly for my Instagram reels, so we'll be able to maybe make a balanced judgment, having tried 2 pints, as to how well they're keeping their beer. And for my last bonus pint, the blueberry porter called Jester. I think it's from the Goffs Brewery in the Cotswold. Yes, that's right. And those of you who watched my Newcastle vlog might have seen how the Titanic plum porter had too sickly a finish. Now, don't get me wrong, I prefer completely dry stouts and porters without the fruit. But for this type of beer, it's actually quite good. Okay, yes, you can taste the strong hints of blueberry, and it does overpower the normal stout or porter flavours, but it's not too bad because it's quite dry. Okay, not quite at the end of the pint, but enough of the way through the pint to make a judgment, and my initial assessment holds true. It's a pleasant pint. I prefer dry stouts, but if you want a fruity one, it's actually one of the best I've had. Anyway, Muttonistas, this vlog is not finished. We're going to roll it over to tomorrow, where we're going to do a bit of tasting at a tap room of a brewery. That should be fun because they've offered to let me try everything in their range. See you tomorrow, folks. Okay, Muttonistas, another day and another watering hole. Something a bit different now. I've been invited to the new Bristol Brewery taproom. Judging by the copper tanks or stills in there, I'd be gobsmacked if they don't actually brew their own beer on the premises. I've been invited to try all of their range. I'm not going to go mad and have pint after pint, but I'll try a little bit of each and bring you a pint of the 2 that I like the most. I'm really looking forward to this because microbreweries in the UK and around the world have really shot up in quality and often beat the old school breweries. So Dom, the manager's getting a member of staff to show me around. This is a pretty impressive setup. It wasn't just the 2 stills I saw from the outside, there are tons of them. So Tom, the head brewer, is going to show me around and then we're going to try some of the range. So tell me, Tom, how many beers are you brewing here at the moment?
We brew 3 beers all year round, and then we brew, I wouldn't even be able to tell you how many more beers.
So there's a constantly changing range,
constantly a changing range, yeah. We've got 14 tanks. those tend to be about sort of 50-50 taken up between our core range and just other sort of specials that we're doing from, through the year. So.
Okay, jolly good. Please lead me along the path of righteousness.
I will. It's a bit of a squeeze though.
Okay.
In the evenings we have to sort of tuck all of our stuff into the brewing area. So normally it's a lot more spacious working in here.
Okay.
And all of the forklift and everything will be out there. So this is our brewery. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen a few breweries in your time.
I have indeed, yes.
So this is the brew house here. So we're a 30 hectolitre brew length tank over there, cold tank. We've got our hot liquor tank here, which is 5,000 litres. And there's our mash tun over there. And our kettle over here.
Okay, the malt store up in the top in the gods. And apparently the size of the tanks range from 2,000 litres up to 8,000 litres. If you can't organise a piss up in this brewery, you can't organise anything. And what about hop selection? How many varieties of hops do you tend to purchase at any one time?
We use a pretty massive range of hops actually, and we have contracts for our American and German hop varieties. So in our lager we use 2 German noble hops, Hallertau Tradition and Tettnanger. And then we use a lot of Citra, we use a lot of Mosaic, we use a lot of Simcoe, we use a lot of Equinor. We use a bit of Idaho 7. We have those contracted, so we have certain volumes that we take every year that we will use, and then outside of that we can use pretty much anything else that comes along. So as soon as we hear of a new hop that's out there, that's gone through the trials, it seems like it's worthwhile, we'll have a play with it.
Well, some of those names of hops I'm familiar with, especially of course Citra and Mosaic, but in general some of the hops that come from the United States are incredibly good for brewing with. And although I know everything has improved massively over in the States, and I know a lot of you watch from the States, back in the day when I used to travel there, the range was very poor. I look forward to going over sometime and trying some of the microbrewery beers, but I'm especially looking forward to trying some here at this brewery, the new Bristol Brewery in Bristol. So a lot of experimentation goes on at this brewery, and that's a little pilot tank. Obviously, if they don't like the beer, it doesn't matter if that gets thrown away. But if they do like the beer, it then gets brewed in a much larger quantity. So for those of you who can't actually come here or find a pub that they supply, they have their own canning station as well, just in front of me. And of course, back in the day, canned pale ales and bitters didn't usually work so well, but brewing techniques have improved so much that particularly ales that are designed to be served from a keg actually go quite well in cans now. So very impressed with what I've seen so far. There's even a little food station outside, which is nice. And Dom, the manager, is now arranging so I can have a little taste of everything. And I'll have 2 pints of the 2 I like the most at the end. If I have even a third of all of these, I'm going to be on my arse. So we're going to stick to very small portions. Okay, Muttonistas, quite an extensive range here. And we're starting off with their Session IPA. It's called the Joy of Sesh. It uses Amarillo, Citra and Mosaic hops, 3 names that are music to my ear. All the beers here are keg beers, but you'll find a bit later that one of the beers I'm going to try actually spent time in a cask first. Delightfully hoppy. Don't be worried about pale ales and bitters coming from a keg these days. They're perfectly good. Okay, some of them might be slightly effervescent, which you might not like, but don't forget big names like Jaipur, my favourite IPA. They produce both cask and keg, and I like them both. Next, the Bristol Bitter. Now, this is the beer that has spent some time in casks, or could be served in casks, and then is put in kegs at the end to make it a little bit effervescent. It should be malty, as most bitters and brown ales are. That's great. I never thought I'd be saying I'd like a bitter from a keg. It's incredible. I would never have thought I'd be saying that, but it is cool, light, refreshing, yet malty. Okay, I prefer hoppy IPAs, but that's pretty good if you prefer your bitters. And of course the Bristol Bitter, again, sessionable, it's 4%. Now, right, Muttonistas, a lot of you mentioned mellow yellow, so of course we had to try it. Here it is, the mighty mellow yellow, mosaic and citra hops. It's supposed to be one of their biggest sellers. Now that is my favourite so far. I'm not surprised it's a really big seller because that is very similar to a lot of the West Coast IPAs I like. Quite a lot of fruity flavours, yet dry and refreshing. Perfect combination for a beer for me. Now, Muttonistas, something I don't usually have, a sour. This one's called Fruits of the Forest, lemon curd and meringue. Again, this might be too sweet for me. I'm not sure I'm going to like it. I don't mind sour flavours, but I'm a bit wary of this one, but I hope I'm pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it's actually quite a nice drink, but I mean, for me, calling it a beer is it's a bit tenuous. It's actually something I wouldn't mind as a digestif at the end of a meal. I do know that sours are gaining in popularity. Again, not my cup of tea, but some of you would probably like that. If you like a sour, I'm guessing, given it had quite a clean taste, even though a little bit sweet, I think this is probably a good example. Okay, Muttonistas, stout and porter time. Two of them on the beer list here. First of all, the weaker one at 4.8% ABV. Yeah, too sweet for me. If you like that sort of stuff, it's quite nice. A little bit too much sweetness and toffee, and of course, slightly bitter finish, which I do like. The second stout, which is quite strong, this one comes in at 6.5%. The coconut and chocolate cake stout, I think it's called. Again, that sounds very sweet. I do prefer the flavours in here to the salted toffee stout, but again, a bit thick, a bit treacly, quite strong. Don't have too much of this because you'll be on your arse if you do it. And now for something completely different. The lager, the Bristol lager. I'm not that big a lager drinker, but when I read the notes of it being a pale lager with a citrusy finish, I thought, well, I might well like this. Yeah, I do. Not only has a clean taste, but again, that little hint of citrus, which I really like. Now, if I were going for a spicy meal or curry or something like that, I'd quite like to drink this with that. Having said that, I doubt it's stocked in too many curry houses, but maybe to a bring your own, this would be a good bet. And next up, the Wonderland Session IPA. Supposed to have mild bitterness with a taste again of tropical fruit, and the hops used here are Citra, Mosaic and Sabro. Sabro's not a hop I'm that familiar with. Yeah, that's quite pleasant. If you don't like your beers to be intensely hoppy, this is actually quite a good choice for you. Obviously I like mine to be hop city, but... Now then, Muttonistas, something that wasn't on the list, Big Cinder Toffee Stout. We had the salted cinder earlier. This one's a stronger version at 6.5%, and I'm wondering, other than the strength, how it's going to taste different to the toffee cinder. Maybe just not so much toffee. On Untapped, I believe this beer got the highest rating of all the beers they sold. That's a big call, that is, given how much I enjoyed the mellow yellow. Yeah, slightly less in the way of toffee notes and a bit stronger. Quite pleasant, but a bit sweet and thick for me. I have to say, when it comes to stouts and porters, I'm a bit picky. I like cask or I like nitro. These aren't quite doing it for me, but I have to say the pale ales definitely are doing it for me. And the last beer in the range is the Up Close Magic Double IPA. Packed with Simcoe hops, obviously Mosaic and Citra, it should be an intensely hoppy experience. Slightly hazy, described as having quite fruity notes as well. Yeah, very, very nice. But at 7%, I couldn't have too many of these. If you're just having one or two, pretty good. Or you're just having tuners, 2/3 of a pint, or halves, again, very nice. So how's that, Muttonistas? We have gone through the whole range, but the two that really stuck out for me, and I'm going to have a pint of each of them, is the Joy of Sesh, their Session IPA, and especially Mellow Yellow. That is an absolute beaut, and I have to have a pint of that.
Just let children roam free and we're just chilling out.
Okay, Muttonistas, next pub, only one more after this, and we are at one of the most famous musical venues, not just in Bristol, I'd say in the UK. The Old Duke, they have jazz every night. I've been here many times to listen to the music and I've loved it. However, I've come at a slightly quieter time because we want to review the beers. And this is King Street, full of excellent old pubs. And if I sort of scan around, there's lots of outdoor seatings, old sort of mock Tudor buildings here, the Old Vic and other bars down the street. And I've been here in summer and in winter, and particularly at weekends, it is absolutely heaving. But of course, Muttonistas, we're here for the pints, and the manager of the Old Duke has told me that he reckons he serves a good pint of Guinness. I'm sceptical because I always have the real ale here. Most people I've seen here are on real ale or lager, but of course, there's only one way to find out. Let's head in, because it's pretty cold, and see what their beers are made of. Pale ale first, Guinness second. I am at a place steeped in musical history, the Old Duke. I explained outside how it's like a heaven for jazz lovers. I love coming here. I've been here quite a few times for jazz, and I'm first of all trying a pint that I know and love and I've had here a lot, the Oakham Citra. East Midlands Brewery, it has an intensely hoppy flavour, predominantly by the name, of course, Citra hops, you know I like that, and it doesn't have any of those tropical fruit flavours that are associated with West Coast IPAs. This is a traditional hoppy English IPA. 4.2% ABV, so very, very sessionable. And I'll get on with this and bring you a Guinness afterwards. But I tell you what, folks, I'm still having wet dreams about that Mellow Yellow I just had. That was awesome. Okay, Muttonistas, coming to the end of this pint. And one thing I forgot to tell you, actually, is that even when the jazz bands are not playing, the music here is pretty good. Very much music from my era and a bit before. And if you like that, this is a great place to come. And I have to say, if you come at weekends when they open quite late, after the live music is finished, they have plenty of this music and a pretty friendly and boisterous crowd. Cheers to that, and we'll move on to our second pint. Right, Muttonistas, the second pint at the Old Duke, and it's the one you're probably waiting for. The manager or one of the bar staff who had contacted me said, I need to review the Guinness here. And of course, as I said a little earlier, I was a little bit sceptical about that, but I have tasted it. And of course creamed off the initial taste for my Instagram reels, and I have to say that the manager or the barman was right to be confident in their beer. It is pretty good. It's not as good as the Star in Fishponds, but it's probably the second best pint of Guinness that I've tasted in Bristol. Very, very surprised because I hardly saw anybody on it, but maybe some evening I'll come in where it's being hammered and it might be better than the Star, but for the moment it's number 2. Okay, Muttonistas, final beer or final beers of this Bristol beer crawl. Now, this is called the Junction, the pub's called the Junction, and I believe it's owned by the Bristol Beer Factory, very famous brewery here. Not quite sure how big the brewery is. Maybe this is the bee's knees, but they're going to have to provide something special to take the mantle away from that mellow yellow. I'm even thinking about Donovan singing the song. Anyway, proper brass monkeys out here tonight. Let's go in. Right, Muttonistas, last pub of the tour. The Junction from the Bristol Beer Factory, and when I saw the taps, particularly the cask taps, I thought, I think I've had some of these before many years ago. Now, the first one I'm going to have tonight is called Our House. Sounds like Magnus from London, that does, but it's supposed to be one of their hoppier pale ales. Very sessionable, 4.2%. Oh yeah, slightly fruity as well. That is a nice pint. Still not getting close to mellow yellow, but what can. But this is still pretty good. And of course, I prefer casks to kegs. Shows you how good that mellow yellow was though. Right, Muttonistas, coming to the end of this pint, and actually quite a hard pint to assess. There's just a little bit of sweetness, not from fruit, and I'm struggling to identify where it's coming from. I understand that these are hops that are grown in England and are then transported to the United States with probably better weather to cultivate such hops. So it's a pleasant pint, don't get me wrong, I'd have this again, but it just goes over the line slightly with sweetness in terms of the balance with the hops and the malt. There is some citra in there, I like that. But there's something else, I might be peach or something like that, that is interfering with the flavour very slightly. Anyway, one more pint to come. I'll be right back with you when I finish this. And tonight I'm trying their milk stout. Now the pint looks pretty good, well poured. Can be too sweet sometimes, these milk stouts. I've had one from another Bristol brewery, which was good but a bit sweet. But I've got high hopes for this one. Oh yeah, and rightly so as well. A little bit of sweetness, but it's really creamy. This is a top cask stout. Okay, Muttonistas, all good things have to come to an end. This milk stout is drinking beautifully. If only they could make it a little less sweet. Wow, what a great alternative to the big names like Guinness this would be. But I hope you enjoyed the vlog. More content to come, and indeed more content from Bristol to come, because I'm going to make a separate video just about cider and the cider houses here. But until then, please remember to share all of this with your friends. Make sure it's shared and particularly liked, because I need to get up the algorithms so that I can bring you more content from further afield. Keep subscribing, but most of all, as always, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.